Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time I'm delighted to welcome back John, the action figure grader from over in the States, and he's going to look through another little batch of vintage Star Wars collectibles that I've pulled from my collection that I really don't have much of an idea what these are actually worth these days. And John's going to give me a hand to tell me perhaps what they might be worth if they were encapsulated and put for sale on the open market. We'll also talk about the market in general, how prices seem to be skyrocketing, and just what is influencing the collector's market in general. It's fascinating. If you've never checked out those sorts of videos on John's channel, you really should. So do head on over there and hit that subscribe button. But without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get to it. We are live. Hello, John.
Hello, Jules. How are you today?
Yeah, absolutely fine. Thank you, mate. Yeah, buzzing for the next one of these. The first one that we did, was it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? It's gone down really well. People have really loved it. They found you for the first time. I think some of your viewers have found me for the first time as well. And I've certainly learned a lot. I'm praying my wife never watches that first video because she'll be on my back trying to get me to flog it. But, you know, she knows it's part of my DNA, and it would take something for me to sell any of it. But even so, I was delighted to learn what some of it potentially is worth in this what seems to be a very hot market at the moment. Seems crazy to me.
It's smoking hot right now. You know, anyone who watches my market update videos for the vintage Kenner and associated Star Wars items, every time I think we've hit a peak, it just blows right past those numbers. So it's a really wild ride right now.
I do find those videos fascinating. And I think a lot of it is to do with current market conditions, isn't it? What's happening around the world. And it was interesting that you said about people have got a lot of savings at the moment. They've not, people who haven't been too badly affected by the pandemic, they've been stuck at home. They've not really been spending a lot. And maybe there's a bit of disposable income out there, which has potentially driven prices up. And people may be just looking for fun stuff to invest in. It's difficult, isn't it, to put any one reason on it, but certainly the market is red hot.
It's such a combination of factors that are all kind of intertwined and playing off of each other. And I talk about, as you alluded to, I do talk about economic measures and just some of the inflation measures and unemployment data and all. You know, there's just so much that goes into it beyond just the standard Star Wars fan demand for collectibles, and all of those are playing perfectly into the kind of the perfect storm of prices right now. So.
Oh, brilliant. Well, once again, thanks for coming on, and thanks for looking through another.
My pleasure.
Not all figures this time. We've got a couple of little curveballs which I've thrown in, but I'm sure you don't mind. So, well, ready when you are. What's the first thing on the hit list then?
Well, first, I really enjoyed this group of items that you sent me. It's such a wide range of values and eras and countries of origin. So I appreciate the kind of the wide range. But let's go ahead and start off with one that is a really hard one to find, and that's the TRILOGO Princess Leia.
Yes. Okie doke. Now, as we go through these, unlike last time, because we do get a bit of reflection glare, I will put up on screen when I edit this the actual photos that I sent you, John, so that people will be able to have a really close look at this one. But there she is in all her beauty. So do you want to know where I got it?
I would love to hear.
Okay, so you remember last time I mentioned about actually that's a bit wobbly. I mentioned about the chap who'd written his car off, and he had a big box of figures which I managed to get for £300. That was not one of them, okay, but it was the person who told me about that collection. It was another dealer who gave me a tip off. Once I picked him up, I went over and showed him. I said, "Here they are. What do you think?" He said, "Absolutely fantastic." There wasn't one of these in there. There was there. And it was that Princess Leia that I've got, and he let me have it for 50 quid, which I thought that's not a bad price, to be honest. However, I don't know if you spotted it in the pictures, but where she's obviously just been laid for decades, where the cape was, it's sort of a little bit of like the cardboard or the white has sort of come away, the paint behind where the figure sits. And I think it's the only figure I know that's got that. And it was only when I got it out of storage after literally a couple of decades, the figure was almost stuck to the back. I guess it could happen to like the Hoth Stormtrooper. And I had to give it a bit of a shake in that TRILOGO bubble, and then it came away. So, and it left a few like paint marks inside, or paint loss inside. So I wasn't sure if you'd spotted that. I'm sure you did. Yeah,
I did, and a lot of the U.S. Kenner card backs, they actually put a thin piece of transparent plastic behind any of the figures with those vinyl capes, like Leia, and even Ben Kenobi, Darth Vader. So that just happens to be one of those things that was not added to the Palatoy TRILOGO. So
right, I did not know that. Yeah, oh, brilliant. But yeah, that's where I got it from. Another nice TRILOGO in the TRILOGO series, which I got to admit, I'm certainly falling in love with, just because of their beautiful bubbles compared to, well, what we'll see a bit later. I've got some Kenner ones which have not aged so gracefully as the TRILOGOs. But so what did you make of it then?
Well, let me tell you that the Princess Leia figure, for whatever reason, not only on TRILOGOs, but on U.S. Kenner card backs for the Return of the Jedi era, so like, 1983-ish, there just were not a lot of them made. And everyone who collects, in earnest, the vintage U.S. Kenner Return of the Jedi knows that if it's not the most expensive Return of the Jedi card back, it's going to be close. Those Leias can go for many thousands of dollars now on the U.S. card back, even if it's yellow blister or whatever. So, but the TRILOGO Leia is not far behind that. It's just very difficult to find her. And I've seen many collections on Facebook where it's like, hey, I'm only missing the Jawa, General Madine, and Princess Leia. And those are three very difficult ones to find. The former two that I just mentioned go for 5 figures or more. But the Leia, it was so hard to find good comparable data for that. But even with the kind of minor amount of pull off of the figure that you just mentioned, that does happen sometimes with those TRILOGOs. And I would guess based on the condition of it, you probably get like a 75 plus to a low 80 grade for that item, and that would be a very, very high demand figure for collectors looking for it. But I mean, gosh, I've only seen maybe 2 or 3 sell on Facebook in the last few years. It's just one of those items that just never shows up. And I put the rough value, and again, take my estimates of value for what they're worth, which ain't much, but I put the value at around 1,300 to 1,500 pounds, or about $1,800 to $2,000 US, and that's about a 30% discount to what the US Return of the Jedi Leias go for. I mean, I've seen very regularly the US card back go for $3,000 or more. So,
wow,
big number. Yeah, it's a big jump from what you bought it for.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah, I mean, I remember I did have the figure as when I was growing up, and I didn't really have the stigma of I was buying a toy for girls, or a girl's toy, which I guess was probably why it was short packed, and maybe they didn't make that many of it. I have a vivid memory of losing the gun on a tarmac outside my old house, and I can still remember to this day being on my hands and knees. My sister was helping me looking for Princess Leia's gun. We found it in the end.
Oh, good.
It was like, talk about a needle in a haystack.
It's a very expensive weapon just by itself.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, we can perhaps talk about the loose stuff down the line, but certainly I've got a loose set, and some of them are my original ones. Some of them were upgraded when I had the shop, but all prior to the repo weapon like splurge on the market, which is you need a degree to work out what's what, don't you, on these? But I'm just happy, like almost all my stuff. In fact, like my carded happened before the repro weapons got big, and also the Toy Tony scandal, which maybe on a future video we'll talk about that, because myself and my business partner George were offered the Toy Tony lot. We were 26 grand it was. I remember seeing the list, and that was for all the cards, all the bubbles. All we had to do was find the figures. And I remember for a couple of years afterwards, Tony himself had an army of people go around buying mint figures, and they would come around the fairs, and he mint figures, and they were suddenly everywhere, and it was a nightmare, because I remember having just a few odd ones to get. Like, I remember I needed the Imperial Dignitary, and for the life of me I couldn't find a carded one without a bit of paint off his nose, which is a really common fault with a loose figure. And I thought, are these all being carded up? I mean, he just didn't know. Back then I didn't, that list is widely available now, but I couldn't remember off the top of my head. I wish I'd taken a bit more interest in it back then, but boy, oh boy, that was an interesting time to be in the world.
The sad thing is with the Toy Tony scandal, those were all unused factory card backs, overstock unused card, and those would be worth way more today, way more today. Having overstock untouched card backs. I mean, if you just held on to those and graded them by themselves as kind of overstock cards, I mean, the value of those would be 10 times whatever he got for them.
I seem to remember, was it 16,000 items or 26,000?
I don't remember the total, to be honest. I'd have to look at the guide online.
The chap who offered them to George and I wanted someone to go in with him. He said, look, I can afford about half of it if you want to come in and get the other half. And it was just too much money. We were talking, I don't know, must have been $8,000. And it was just, back then, that was too much. But he the other chap who offered them to us was thinking, oh, well, we'll just glue them on. He wasn't thinking of, like you say, keeping the card backs and having mint ones, although I do remember a lot of those around as well at the time. So I don't think they were all put into actual figures. I think some, unused cards did slip out. Cool. That was an interesting find.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's about as close as I got to it. I saw the list and I had a very genuine offer to go in, and we couldn't afford it.
Wow. Incredible.
He got it. Tony, what was he called? He used to advertise in Model and Collector's Mart. Tony, it's like a Spanish or Italian sounding name. And I remember I can picture him now at the fairs. And he didn't just do Star Wars, he did all sorts of stuff, but he was always super expensive, I thought. But there you go. That's history now, isn't it?
It is. That's incredible.
Brilliant. Then, so what was number 2 on the list?
Let's stick with the TRILOGOs for a second. Your EV99, the last 17 figure, which are just going up, higher and higher every single day.
I do really, really like EV99. It's a great figure, isn't it? And the bubble on this wasn't quite as yellowed as I thought, because they almost all have yellowed, but this one, it's just like a tiny tint, isn't it? It's not too bad. Yeah, and the actual figure inside is perfection. The actual figure is lovely. So I was really pleased with that one, to be honest. Yeah, great figure, that one. One I never had as a kid. I can't remember where that one came from. No, don't know. Can't remember.
Well, that is a super fragile figure. Those arms come off super easy, and it blows my mind watching the last 17 continue their march upwards. Even loose figures, ungraded, graded, whatever. I can't fathom how they could go any higher, but they keep going higher. And as you mentioned, it did have a yellow blister, and I question, this would be a question for some better experts out there, but it does seem like that EV99 on the TRILOGO, while most TRILOGOs don't suffer from yellowing, the 99s do for some reason, and I just wonder if it's a different type of plastic that they use, since it's a wider blister.
I think it might be because it's a unique shape. It's the bubble, and then it's like a couple of layers.
Got a little
and maybe
separate
they
area.
used a different sort of plastic, one which was then susceptible to yellowing, unlike the normal TRILOGOs. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't. And this is for the benefit of your viewers. We might have talked about this, we might not have, but I've heard that the main reason for yellowing on, especially the Return of the Jedi line on the U.S. card backs, is that they used a fire retardant chemical in the making of the blisters, and that is what causes the yellowing nowadays on that. So it might very well be that blister, because of its size difference or whatever, they might have sourced it from those same factories that use the fire retardant in the making of those blisters. So that's a good point. But nevertheless, that that 99 is otherwise in immaculate condition, and I would put the grade on that one for around 85. It's a near mint item. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And as a reference point, one just sold that was a 75 plus grade, so a little bit lower in grade. That one sold for $1,350 US very recently, and but it had a clear blister. So you are going to get a little bit of a premium, or in some cases a big premium for Return of the Jedi era figures that are mint on card that have a clear blister versus a yellow blister. And it varies depending on the character, depending on which card back it is and things like that. But usually you do get a premium, even if it's slightly lower grade. But I think even with all that said, it's an immaculate item in terms of condition. And very, very conservatively, someone would buy it tomorrow for between 800 and 900 pounds, or 1,100 to 1250 US, and that's probably low, to be honest with you, given what the last 17 figures have done over the last 6 months. It's just been an amazing march.
Crazy, yeah, because they're worth so much even loose, aren't they?
They are. They are.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I remember that. Remember we were talking last time about the 29p find in the shop, and I remember the R2 lightsaber, and there was 3 or 4 of that particular figure. That was the one which there was a few multiples of, and the one I've got in my collection is the best of those 4 carded. And don't kill me, but remember this was 1988. But the worst one, I opened up, and that's my loose one in my loose collection, because it was when I thought, I didn't even know they made this R2D2 with a lightsaber. So and the card literally was falling to bits, but consequently my R2 pop-up lightsaber loose is immaculate. It's as good as the one on the card. But I mean, I wouldn't dream of doing that today, but back then, well, I got 4 of them, and I want a loose set and a carded set, and this one's hammered, and this is the best one, so I kept the best one carded, and the worst condition when I just opened it.
Well, that R2 pop-up saber, I mean, it's one of my, this will give you a good reference point. Just yesterday, my friend Chris posted a photo of a very near mint example, loose, not graded or anything like that. He just posted one photo, and it said coming soon for sale. And someone based just on that one photo said, "I'll pay you $700 for it." And that's just for the loose figure, based on one photo that he saw. So it's just such a high demand item, and like they all are. So
that's 17 again, yeah.
So. Well, the next one on my list was the Return of the Jedi. This one will be kind of an interesting one for folks, but this is the Return of the Jedi FX7 that you have. It's on the US card back.
Yellowed. Ooh. The first of I was looking through these, and I've got a box of predominantly Kenner figures, and a lot of them are yellowed, unfortunately. The cards are pretty nice, but the bubbles have yellowed. I mean, this isn't bad. It's it has got somewhere, particularly because it's not in a star case or anything. There was a bit of creasing. There's a little dink on the side there. It's got a yellow bubble, but it is unpunched. So it is an uncirculated one, but it's just not in the greatest of shape. But I love the figure. I do love FX7. It's a great one, isn't it?
Yes.
So what was the score with this then?
Well, this is one that really surprised me. This surprised me a lot, Jules. I didn't know how rare it was to find these FX7s on the Return of the Jedi cards, and it varies. Something like the Power Droid, for example, you see them all over the Return of the Jedi cards. The R2 sensor scope, you see a lot of those. But apparently FX7 was not produced in large numbers, very similar to the Princess Leia. Not quite as rare as a Leia, but they command pretty big dollars on the open market on the Return of the Jedi card. And I put, this is a 77 back. The one you have, it is yellowed, and it has that slight crease that you mentioned. But I still put the grade at roughly about a 75. And one in almost the exact same condition sold on eBay in May for $450 US. And so I think that gives you a pretty good data point, because it was almost the exact same condition.
That's miles more than I was expecting for that.
I was too. I was really surprised by that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like it was one. I mean, there was multiple sales at that price point, so it was consistent in that 400 to 400 and $475, $450 price point.
It's funny because that one, from memory, I thought I had the TRILOGO of, but I didn't. There was another couple. Like I remember the Death Star droid turning down the TRILOGO to go for the Kenner one instead, because I had the TRILOGO for sale in my shop, and I ummed and ahed, and I thought, no, I'll have the Kenner one, and I really regret it because that TRILOGO one's lovely now. But
that's what I'm on the hunt for. I've got a nice little Death Star droid run going. I've got one on each card bag except for the TRILOGO, and I mean the last two have been in the $2,000 range, so it's very difficult to find him.
Really, I do actually know the person who bought it. It was a girl. I mean, I know her parents still. I should ask, shouldn't I?
maybe it's still there.
She didn't buy many carded, but she bought some. So you never know. Yeah, I remember she bought it. Cool. What's next then?
Well, now we got the bounty hunter, and the bounty hunters are making a big comeback. We all know that Boba Fett is popular, but a lot of these other bounty hunters are really creeping up in price, and that's your Forlom or Zuckuss, depending on whether you're old school or new school. And there he is.
There he is. Yeah. This one I was quite pleased with. It's much better condition than the FX7. Still got a yellowing bubble, but overall, I was really pleased with this. It's a really nice unpunched one. Yeah, he's all right. This.
It's an excellent condition. That's the 65B back US card. And what's interesting about Forlom is that he only made his debut on the Empire Strikes Back 48 back releases. So he's not very easy to find on an Empire Strikes Back card, and those go for big money. So you really started to see big numbers for him on the 48 back US Return of the Jedi card with the Neon Numb offer, and then this 65 back that you just showed, as well as I don't see very much, but he is available on the 77 back as well. But that one that you have it's a yellow blister, very very light yellowing, and I put it at an 85 grade. It's a near mint condition, absolutely perfect condition. And I'd say a year ago that would have been a $200 item all day long, but you can probably count $350 to $400 now for one of those, just given what all the bounty hunters have been doing lately. So that puts you at about 250 to 300 pounds for you guys overseas there.
Oh, that's nice. That's great. Yeah. Once again, I don't remember where that one came from. It was probably in that one of the job lots that I got back in the day. Yeah. But yes, it's a really nice figure. And like you, I always loved the bounty hunters. I used to have a spare loose set that I just had of all the bounty hunters, all mint complete, just on my desk, like my work desk. But I had to thin the figures out. So I sold them as a set. They got maybe 150, 200 pounds, but they were absolutely immaculate. I wish I had that spare set of bounty hunters now, because they're just brilliant, But say, hey ho. Well, that was really good. Yeah, that's really nice.
It's a nice one.
So what was next then?
Well, I was really pleasantly surprised to see you pick a few comic books out of there. So I wanted to go through some of your key vintage Marvel Star Wars comics that you picked out. So I wanted to start with where it all began, and that's Star Wars #1.
Indeed, yeah. So back in the day when I had the shop, we sold a lot of comics. But even prior to that, I always collected the Star Wars comics, and I have a whole run of the British Star Wars comic. I bought it as it came out and saved it. I've got more with free gifts, and then later on the huge run of Return of the Jedi, because in the UK it was weekly, not a monthly Marvel comic. It was weekly. So there's hundreds of them. I got huge boxes of them, and I've got them all. But I've also got a full set of all the USA Marvel ones, because I picked them up over the years. And for many, many years, it was a bargain bin. So the dealers literally couldn't get rid of them. And we were picking them, I had a mint set of them all, including the very last one, 107, which that used to be the valuable one, the very last issue. But as we'll see, it's changed nowadays. I'm missing a few droids and I'm missing a few Ewoks, but I've got some of them. And I've got one of the Star Wars 3D comics, which is super rare as well. I used to have all the Dark Horse stuff, all of it. And it was so much, 5 or 6 boxes, all the early stuff, pristine, bought it brand new as it came out. I've had to get shot because you just can't keep everything, But so for #1 then, I've got the original US one. These are first printings, and I've got the Marvel movie showcase, which is like an omnibus, I think, of the first film, which was in about 1980. But that's the 30-cent variant. I haven't got the 35-cent. It's the 30-cent variant of the original one, in pretty nice condition. That particular one. I mean, it's certainly. Well, the thing is, CGC, the comic grading company, do like 9.9, 9.8, 9.7, 9.4 is a common one, isn't it? In the old days, this would be NN, near mint, and then it would be like very fine plus. So, at a glance, I'd say this was very fine plus. It's, but does that make it about a 90 out of 100? I don't know, a 9.0. It's pretty nice copy, but it's not mint, should we say?
Well,
so.
I want to preface this again by telling all of your viewers that I'm so new to comics that my estimated grades and my estimated values, you can take those for what they're worth, and it's not much. But I have done quite a bit of research on how CGC grades comics, and I've tried to watch videos on what they ding for, what they take points off for, and as you alluded to. On the 9.0 scale, 9.0, and then it goes by twos. So 9.2, 9.4, 9.6. 9.8 is considered near mint plus / mint. And then below 9, it goes in half point increments. So it goes from 9 to 8.5 to 8 to 7.5. So it's a little bit different how they score comics versus action figures. And the price difference is just incredible. So, for example, I put your estimated grade at probably an 8.5 or a 9 for that one, as you talked about. But if you look at what a 9.8 grade goes for, the Hakes auction site just sold one, a CGC 9.8 Star Wars #1, and it sold for almost, I'm going on memory, but over $6,000. But as you drop in grade, even from a 9.8 to a 9.6, that value gets more than cut in half. So the comic market is so much different, or a lot different than the action figure market in certain respects, where especially with even modern books, the price difference can be double, triple by just going from 9.8 to 9.6. So that's my very quick kind of synopsis on how the grading works. It's just for the benefit of your viewers. But I think that there's so many sales. Obviously, that book was printed in such high quantity. It's just hard to find a really, really near mint plus to mint example. And I think that based on the information or the photos that you sent me, you're able to really zoom in and see spine ticks and color breaking creases and all those kind of fancy terms that the comic world uses. But I think it would probably get about an 8.5 if I had to guess. And there's been lots of recent sales, and that's nothing to sneeze at. I would put the value of your book, once graded, to probably in the 350 to 400 pound range, which is about 450 to 550 US. And so that shows the viewer, that's an 8.5 or 9, and then to go from an 8.5 to a 9 value to a 9.8, you're talking massive multiples in terms of price. So it's a very strange market, and a market that has, to a certain extent, exploded even more so than the action figure market.
Certainly when we had the shop, people would come in and they'd arm themselves with a price guide, and they wouldn't look at the good. They'd only be looking at the near mint price, and then they'd be, I remember this happened. We had a guy bring in some early Spider-Mans, and there was like a Spider-Man #4 in there. Well, it says here it's 2,600. So yeah, that's for mint unread. Look at the state of yours. It's a British copy, not an American cents copy, for starters. Back then, that would virtually half it in price, straight off the bat. And then look, it's all there, but it's just like a good at best. And look at the good price. It's 270, like a tenth of it. And that's in dollars. So we'll put it out for maybe, 200 quid. We're going to give you a percentage of that, not 2,600 in our money. It's just ain't going to happen. And he took it away again because he just couldn't get his head around it. But that's how it works, isn't it? And yeah, like you say, people in the comic world, and it's going to happen in collectibles as well, they'll pay that mega premium for the absolute best of the best, because that's what some people want, isn't it? They want
Well,
the
and
best that
you know, and I don't want to make it sound like it doesn't happen in the action figure world either, because for example, Power of the Force General Lando, last 17. On the card, AFA 85, they've been selling kind of 600 to 650. Well, an AFA 90, so it only went up by one score. An AFA 90, same figure, same card back, just sold for $1,500. So that's over double the price, and all it did was move up just slight in score. So it does happen in the action figure world. It just seems more pronounced in the comic world because there's so many different scales in terms of 9.0, 9.2, 9. So it just seems like the price jump to go from those middling grades all the way up to that near mint plus slash mint. It's a pretty incredible price difference.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, yeah, it is what it is. It's the comic market is its own market. It's very different to the action figure line, but even so, it's interesting to see. I hadn't even thought about it until you commented on that Hakes auction. I thought, wow,
right.
I had no idea these comics were quite that hot. But they've just been set in a box. I actually remember lending almost the whole run out to a mate to read. I said, you've got to be really careful with these, and he absolutely was. But considering what they go for now, maybe that wasn't the wisest thing to do. But hey,
I still have not been able to find I have somewhere a full run of the Marvel as well, and they're all really beat up because I've read them and just kind of collected beat up copies that were cheap, but I cannot find it anywhere. I don't know what happened to them. I've looked all over my attic. I've looked garage everywhere. So they might be lost to time, but they were not super valuable or anything like that. But it would have been nice to at least show them on the channel. But
absolutely, and have reading copies. Yeah,
I didn't get to you showed the movie showcase Star Wars #1 as well.
Oh yeah.
And I forgot to mention that one was actually a little bit better grade based on the photos that I saw. That one probably would get a 9.0 or a 9.2, so a very nice grade. But this is also one that's very easy to find and doesn't command nearly the premium of the original Star Wars #1. And at that grade, there's been dozens of sales, and that value, again, going back to your Star Wars #1 that we just talked about, as a reminder, I put the value at 350 to 400, and this one's higher grade. Your movie showcase example is higher grade, but the value is 40 to 75 pounds. So, so it just shows you how much more numerous the printings were for that one.
It was my #1. It was on the back of #1, so the cardboard in between them slipped in a mile. I'd forgot I even had it. I just remember every comic mart I used to go to when we were looking for stock, I'd have my own personal wants list, and I was just trying to get all the Star Wars, and if it's something that I came across that I didn't already own, I've got them in tabloid size. Do you remember the Marvel tabloids? There's 2 of those, and there's an omnibus of both issues. I think I've got them in magazine size as well, Marvel Super Special magazines. Don't know for Star Wars, but I've definitely got an Empire one for that in that format. There might be a couple others. Paperback format. I mean, it's endless, isn't it? Then all the British editions, of course, which they just go on forever, and the British annuals, because I just got them just here. Actually, it's in the UK. We had the adaptation was done in the Star Wars hardbacks, so they're just here, and it's just the story of Star Wars. Horrible black and white, though. So that's how the British comics were as well. They're black and white, so they're not so much fun as the American editions, for sure. Of course, we did have a couple more, didn't we, to look at?
Yeah, the next one is one that continues to just skyrocket in price, and I think it has a lot to do with what's on your shirt there, and that's the Mandalorian has really brought back even more so than it already was the popularity of Boba Fett, and he made his first comic appearance in Star Wars #42. Just an iconic key issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. And when I think back in the day, when we would go through and there would be so many Star Wars, and you could have picked up any issue you wanted, really. Certainly these common ones, this used to be common. There would be like 10 copies there for like 20p or something. It's just mind-blowing, really. But I always loved these, and looking at this particular one, yeah, there was one tiny little nick, but pretty nice, that one, I think.
It was not. It had off-white to white pages. It had some just kind of very, very light off-white, but I still put the estimated grade on that one at about a 9.2. So it's another pretty nice example, given the age of
Yeah.
that book. And there's lots of recent sales. It's been skyrocketing in price, but the prices are just all over the map. It just depends on whether they're auctions or buy it nows. The buy it now prices I tend to discount a little bit because it's usually somebody with too much money and not enough patience, and they just buy it now. But uh, I'd say a year and a half ago, that book, in the most mint condition ever, would be $600 to $700. Now that book is about 10 times that. It's very regularly selling for crazy money, depending on whether it's the newsstand or the direct edition like yours. And yours is the direct edition. But I say, if yours was graded and it came back with a 9.2, I think very easily it's worth 450 to 700 pounds, and which is about 600 to $1,000 US. And again, it all depends on the grade. An 8.5 versus a 9.2, it's a massive price difference, but it's a gorgeous example, and it showed really well in the photos.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real nice one. It's a real nice one. As I think was the next one. This one actually had a few more spine creases. Looking at it now, a little crease in the corner. Great cover. But yeah, probably not as good as the last one. I wouldn't have thought grade wise.
Yes. So this is another key issue that a lot of people really like to collect. Is Star Wars number 68. And what a lot of people don't know is that the cover is not Boba Fett. It's actually a Mandalorian. The storyline in the book covers it, and it's like more of a Mandalorian kind of clone figure. So a lot of people don't realize that's actually not Boba Fett on the cover. But and I agree. It was off-white to white pages again. It had some color rub and some minor color breaking creases, and I think it would either be an 8.5 or a 9 with CGC. And I put it probably at a 9. It's a really nice example, and that it kind of puts you in that price point. And there's been a number of recent sales for that one. Number 68 doesn't sell for nearly as much as the first appearance issue that we just talked about, number 42. But still, I think that in that condition, if it hit a 9.0, you'd be looking at 200 to 250 pounds, or roughly $275 to $300 US. So it's just one of those. There's a handful of key issues, and one we hadn't talked about. We talked about 42, which is the first appearance of Boba Fett. The other big one that's really been jumping is number 43. That's the first appearance of Lando, and that's another big issue that's really come a long way with Disney Plus's new planned Lando Calrissian show. But this one is not far behind that. This number 68 is considered a big key issue in the original run.
That's cool. And there was one more. So I feel like I always loved this one because it was unusual to have a painted jacket or painted cover. And it's a really nice one, isn't it? Number 81.
This is, in my opinion, one of the most gorgeous of the original Marvel run for that cover. I actually just got graded a Dark Horse Comics 2-pack where they reprinted that comic and included Boba Fett and another figure inside it. It's just
really nice.
Such a gorgeous cover. And this is another one that's really taken off in price, where it didn't used to be that expensive. Under $300 even, let's say, a year and a half ago. But because of the Boba Fett tax, everyone wants a Boba Fett item. And because we got the Book of Boba Fett coming out, where he, according to Disney Star Wars canon, he appears to have survived the Sarlacc pit. And that's what this book covers, at least in part. It's called The Return of Boba Fett on the labels for CGC. It's considered a key comic now, especially with the new content coming. So that one is skyrocketed in price. And yours is the direct edition. The newsstands can go for triple what the direct edition does, but nevertheless, it's a really nice example. And I put that grade about the same, about a 9.0. It does have off-white to white pages, just a couple of ticks and color breaking creases, but overall a really nice example. And if it graded around there, you'd probably be worth about 150 to 175 pounds, or 250 to 250 US. And just for your viewers, as a comparison perspective, that's for about a 9.0. A 9.8 just sold the other day for $900. So it's a pretty, it just jumps up pretty quick depending on the grade.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. That's great. It's fun to look at the comics, and I've always got a soft spot for them. I really do. And it's interesting to see what's happening with some of these issues now. And we've seen it time and again with superheroes. You know, superhero might get a revival when suddenly their first appearance goes through the roof. And similar thing with Star Wars. Why wouldn't it? You know, why wouldn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, there's been a big boon in the Star Wars comic world, and I'm guilty of falling into that trap. I've been getting some issues here lately too. So it's just a lot of fun. And what I like about it, Jules, is that it takes up a lot less space. You know, I'm starting to run out of space in my collection room, so it's nice to get some comics that are nice and thin. Okay, so let's go over to one that I actually have in my collection, and that's your Clipper mail-away Darth Vader.
Yes.
I'm going to show what mine looks like. This is, you got a sealed box, and for those that want to see what it looks like, what's inside the box, there you are. It's got a Darth Vader inside. So Jules' example is nice. So where'd you pick that one up?
Okay, so once again, when we had the shop, we bought our regular comics and some action figures and memorabilia, graphic novels, that sort of stuff from the wholesaler, which was Diamond Comics Distributors. This was in the Diamond catalogue. And I think the wholesale price was £2.79 plus VAT. And I think we bought 100, something like that. And they all just turned up. So this was one of those. But the reason mine is slightly discolored and dusty more than anything, it's just because I had it on the shelf, poked out like that when I had my stuff out on display. So it's just sort of aged, but we had easily 100 of these and we just knocked them out at like £7 or £8, just mint in box, or maybe a bit more. I seem to remember we eBayed a load, and I was getting 12 quid a pop on eBay, so we're making a tenner on each, which at the time was good. I'll take that, you know. No idea what. I mean, yeah, it's sealed, but it's aged. You know, the tape is aged and that. But I'd be very curious to know what these are going for. I've no idea, really.
Well,
my guess is, I don't know, 50 quid maybe. I don't know.
Well, no, you're way low on that one. So these used to be fairly inexpensive because they're fairly numerous. But I think because foreign vintage Star Wars stuff in general has just gone through the roof, whether it's Palatoy or Clipper or PvP, Spanish PvP figures, Lily Letty down in Mexico, the Takaras from Japan. But, you know, this was one that I picked up fairly early on when I started collecting graded items. And I didn't pay much for it. I don't know exactly when it was, probably about 8 to 10 years ago. And mine was already graded, and it's a U85, so near mint plus. I want to say I paid about $100 to $120 for it, and mine was graded already. And there hasn't been a ton of sales, but I'd put yours at about an 80 grade. Even with the discolored tape, it's probably about an 80, so it's a near mint score. One sold on Hakes that was graded by Collector Archive Services, 85. That one sold for $450, and that was back in 2019. So that was 2 years ago. And what a price has done since then. On Facebook, they've been selling anywhere from $400 to $450 US. So $300 to $350 is a pretty safe number, I think, for yours if you decide to grade. One interesting thing that a lot of collectors have been doing is if they don't want to unseal the box, you know, mine's been unsealed by the grading company and graded uncirculated. But some collectors, they take those boxes and they get them X-rayed, and then they encase the sealed box next to an X-ray of Darth Vader, so it looks like Darth Vader after he's been electrocuted by Emperor Palpatine, right next to the box. So it's just something that I've seen before, and it's really interesting.
That's crazy, isn't it? That is crazy. Limerick. But yeah, I wish I kept a few more. There weren't many figures that we had in a massive quantity. That one was one of them. There was those carded Gamorreans, I remember. I mentioned last time I had a case of those. I also remember we had Niem Nums, about 100 baggies of those, and C-3PO with removable limbs.
That's a big one. That's very numerous.
Yeah, and all the ones that are in my loose collection were from those. So they're pretty uncirculated loose examples, and that's the when I had my original, with my loose set, had my original ones, and I sort of built up on that. And when really mint figures turned up in the shop, they were the ones that I kept. So unfortunately, they've been in a display case, which has taken a bit of sun over the years. Not anymore, but it's meant that a few of the figures I have to swap out to get a really nice high grade set again. And it's a project I'm looking to start quite soon. Yeah, they're all just out of the display case, apart from my first 12, which are in the official stand. The rest of them are just in little baggies for the time being. So that's another project for another day. But yeah, cool.
Well, hopefully
cool.
Hopefully the prices calm down for you when you start buying again.
Well, the good thing is I'm not going to need any weapons, and I'll be able to sell my old ones back on. So it's really just paying for an increasing quality and condition rather than anything else. So I'll bear that in mind. You know,
I bet it won't be too bad. That's good.
No, the weapons are almost as expensive as the blimmin' figures, aren't they? In some cases,
oftentimes more.
Yeah, it's well, I can't get my head around it. Okay, what was next then?
Well, you got a couple of autographed items, and I wanted to start with the it's debatable whether he shot first or Han shot first, but I wanted to talk about your signed Paul Black GREEDO.
Yeah, a nice Empire card. I think I love these cards. Yeah, really, really nice. Yeah, it's got a ripple though in the card, which you know I took a photo of it dead flat, so you could see it sort of goes up. I don't know what to do. What can you do much about that? I mean, it's historical, isn't it?
It's very difficult to get rid of that of that ripple, especially in vintage cards. I've had success with modern stuff that, you know, a lot of the modern stuff has like a natural curve from being packed into the shipper boxes. But I'm always a little hesitant to recommend book stacking or anything like that on those vintage card backs, just because you have the risk of, you know, that cardboard's so fragile. It's 40 years old. So, I do know some collectors that do very carefully stack books and let it sit for a couple weeks, and that'll flatten it out a little bit. But I've always been too hesitant to do that. I'm too afraid I'm going to cause some color breaking issues with the card back.
Yeah, I have done it with books, you know, old paperbacks and that, which benefit from it, but never really with figures. But still displays beautifully. Really nice. And he was at Paul Blake came to a convention in Plymouth, I seem to recall. That's where I met him. And as you'll see, I went through and got lots of figures signed over the years. If I was going to a show, I'd check the list and see who was there. And I've got a figure of that, I'll take it along. There were still some I had, and people I met I didn't get signed, who are now no longer with us. But what can you do? You know, Peter Diamond, who was the stunt guy who played the original Tusken Raider who attacks Luke. Met him a couple of times, but never got anything signed. So, and he's no longer with us. You know, things like that. It's like damn hindsight again. But this is really nice. You know, I always liked GREEDO. Hammerhead was my favorite as a kid. I loved Hammerhead. The figure just took him. If you could go out and you took one figure, for some reason it would be Hammerhead, but GREEDO was a close follow-up, I have to say, you know. So this is a real nice one, and I love the Empire cards. I haven't got that many, but this is one that I really like.
Yeah, it's a beautiful item. Beautiful item.
Yeah, secret base. So I think this is probably one of only maybe a couple of Kenner Empire ones that I've got. So yeah, even with all the little defects, then how did this one stack up?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, that it's got some wave to the card and some edge wear, but the blister is crystal clear, which is always nice to see. And it's not terribly hard to find clear blister ESB cards, because those were earlier, but you do see some yellowing nowadays with a lot of those, just given their age. But I put the rough grade on that one for 75 plus to an 80. And as we talked about in our last video, when we looked at your Boba Fett and I believe your Imperial Commander signed by Julian Glover, that there are certain collectors that do not want vintage items signed. They prefer to have it, you know, just standard retail. So that does kind of preclude it becoming super valuable, you know, or in high demand, because it's a certain subset of buyers that love those. And I obviously have a big autograph collection, but nothing on vintage cards, just because of the price. But I think that very comfortably, you know, GREEDO is a pretty popular character, and a number of Empire Strikes Back GREEDOs have sold recently that unsigned that gives me a pretty good data point on where I think it would be valued at. And I think that very comfortably 350 to 400 pounds, so around 500 to 600 US. Again, it depends on the buyer, and it takes that right kind of buyer to pay that.
Mhm.
But I think for the someone who really likes having autographed items, that would be a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a really nice one, and it displays really well. So
It does.
it's in a GW acrylic case for now because it's been on display, but yeah, I've got to save a few ones for a few decent ones for future videos. But there'll be more and more, I think, just loose, well, not loose, but stuff like the FX7 and that. Not even in a star case. So.
I know it's crazy to me.
Yeah. So there was one more.
There was. This is one I really liked a lot.
The Darth. And it is a Kenner. Yeah. So I remember. I do have an interesting story with this. I remember a customer of ours said, "Got a bit of money to spend. I want to invest in a few figures. You're off to this toy fair. Dave Prowse is there. Would you mind picking me up a 12-back Palatoy Darth Vader and just go and get him to sign it?" And this was in 1992, 1993. And I said, yeah, sure, mate. So this will give you an idea of the prices. So I went to a dealer, found a Darth Vader that was a really nice Palatoy 12-back, 70 quid. Then took it along to Dave Prowse, 15 quid for him to sign it. So £85 and gave it back to him. Anyway, I just did it as a favour. Just 70 quid for a 12-back Darth Vader. That's what the stuff was back then. And even that seemed a lot. But you could have, for a couple of thousand, you could have got the first 21 mint on card. Maybe not the plastic Cape Jawa. That was about, maybe 1,000 on its own back then. But cool. It was the golden era. But I don't know when I got this one signed by him, but I've got quite a bit signed by Dave Prowse. When we had the shop, we did a Star Trek convention. And Dave Prowse, being Dave Prowse, he would turn up at every show under the sun, selling. He had set his table up and he'd be there signing. So it's a very, very common signature. But we were talking to him we were there for 3 days, and we had like a mini room with our stuff in. And Dave Prowse was right outside, so we were talking to him for most of the weekend. And on his stall back then, because once again, this is early 90s, he had pictures of him dueling Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan. And Alec Guinness had signed his half of it, and Dave Prowse had the pictures there to buy, and he would do his half of it. And he was selling them for about 30 quid. So that's what I've got. I've got one of both of them signed as a signed still, which is really nice. And that came direct from Dave Prowse. I did have one other Alec Guinness, but I sold that to a collector a few years back who desperately wanted one off me. But that was pretty cool. But this was just picked up of one of the many times we got to see him, and the actual figure's all right, isn't it? It's yellowed again, and it's been punched. But apart from that, it's okay. 65 back. I see. So not a bad one.
It's gorgeous. And I put the grade on that one with the yellow blister about 80 plus. So it's a very nice high grade near mint example. And as you've already mentioned, Dave Prowse is a very prolific signer, and numerous items are available with his signature. All that being said, it's Darth Vader, and I've got a number of nothing vintage, but I do have a number of items signed by Dave Prowse, mainly Power of the Force 2 items, just given that it's a lot cheaper to collect, and that one would definitely be of interest to collectors, and it displays so beautifully. It's just an iconic card back, and I think easily 250 to 300 pounds for that one. Again, he's just so prolific that there's all kinds of different signed, even vintage card backs with his signature on it. But every day, Darth Vader items go up and up, and especially after his unfortunate passing. So 250 to 300 pounds is about right. $350 to $400 US. So
yeah, no, I'm more than happy with that. Yeah, I do remember sort of about the mid-90s, because everything with Darth Vader on, Prowse himself got sent one, and he started selling his own toys that he'd been sent. And I know a couple of collectors who got some bits and pieces Darth Vader related, direct from him.
Wow.
Like a lot of. I remember back in the day, anyone who worked on the movies, you could get a Lukeite star. The Star Wars star, like a cast and crew item, and they were made over here, so they were common. They were absolutely common. And I remember the guy who played Jabba, and you see him he was replaced in the special edition, and he was cut out of the original one. It was Declan Mulholland. I think that was the actor's name. Short, sort of tubby guy. I remember he came to a convention in Plymouth as well, and he offered it to me for 90 quid. He said, "Look, I've got my original one." He said, there was another dealer who said he was interested in it, but if you've got 90 quid, I'll send it down to you like on Monday, sort of thing. That's what he was going to willing. And I said, "Oh, well, I'm not that fussed about it, but I really wish I had now, because I don't know what they go for, but that was his first one for Star Wars."
Wow.
And it was amazing, the sort of stuff that would turn up. I remember, I don't know if you've heard of the designer Peter Lamont. It was he designed James. He designed, and I think he directed one of the James Bond movies. But he worked on the first Star Wars film, and his son phoned me when we had the shop and said, "Oh, I've got some cast and crew items, some behind the scenes stuff." And I said, "Mate, this is not my cup of tea," but I was able to, we couldn't handle that sort of stuff, but I pointed him in the direction of dealers who could take that sort of stuff. The weirdest call that came out of the blue was from the first film again. Literally, you couldn't make this up. It was the guy, Richard Lepalmartier was his name. In the first movie, he's the guy when all the Imperials are sat around the table and Vader goes like that, and he starts struggling,
right?
Because they're saying, "You've not found the plans." It was that actor,
Monty. I think he plays Monty or something.
Yeah, Monty. And he literally just started doing the fairs, and of course they just released his figure, with him like going like this, and he said, and he's on the phone, and he said. And he spoke just like it, He said, "Oh, do you want any of my figures?" I got this brilliant figure. I'll sign them up, and they're like 15 quid each. And just pay. I'll send them out. You pay me when they've sold. And I think we took 4 or 5 off him like that, and they did all sell in actual fact. But that was the sort of stuff you could come across. It's just amazing. I don't know how we got onto that subject, but hopefully,
that's great. I love it.
The day Admiral. Oh yeah, because people dying. That was it. Yeah. I did actually get to meet him once at one of the shows, and I've got a photo of him as well, so I'll stick that in when I edit this one down.
Oh, great.
Anyway, blimey, we're on an hour already, so there's not much left to go, is there? Oh,
I think we got one more.
We've done the yeah.
Okay.
Right. So, John, before we do the final one, I thought it might be fun if we just read on air some of the comments that we had on the last video. Because
I would love to hear it. Yeah.
It went down extremely well. Phenomenally well. People really, really love sort of hearing our stories, and I guess my reaction to some of it, I couldn't believe the pricing, because it was quite amazing, wasn't it? So what I've got here, I'm just pulling the video up now. This is the well, there was 111 comments, which is more than I usually get. Well, people really just liked it. So our friend, the Blacked Out Ewoks, just fabulous and rather cozy. He says we also bought a lot of the Anakin Skywalkers from Steve Chamberlain, that dealer, who still around today. And he said he stacked a few Gamorrean guards away for good measure, and Anakin's. So that's good news. Tim at Boss Bounty said, "I need that TRILOGO." So if I ever sell it, Tim, it's going to be for you. Great content as always. This is KVLR. Great content as always, Jules. As someone just getting into the hobby, had some as a kid in the early 90s, it's great to learn. Shout out the action figure GREEDO, also very polite, knowledgeable, subbed. So He's joined
Thank
the
you for the
channel.
kind words.
Vintage Toy Rush. He says, loved this discussion. Some real gems, and crikey, it's amazing what they can go for these days. Hope we can cover some more of your cards in the future. Well, definitely.
Here we are.
Man, I remember going to local toy shops and local market where we used to pick up these brand new for 50p. Big cardboard boxes full of them. That was maybe 85 to 87. It was a great time, and I always remember those Saturday morning trips with my dad. That's really cool, isn't it? Darth Wizzy Wizard. This is amazing. I remember this era. I was 10 years old in 1990. Couldn't afford those figures, though. Danny says, this is right up my alley, Mr. Jules. Freaking enjoyed the heck out of this one. Action figure grader seems like a stand-up guy as well. Thanks for sharing. You've got some great Jules, Mr. Jules.
You sound like a Bond villain, Mr. Jules.
Mr. Jules, yeah. Lo-Fi Guy. That artist brought back many memories. I remember begging my mum to get me that together with the X-Wing Luke. We've got that one to come on a Palatoy card. From a local Tesco during the weekly shop. I must have been tiny. I no longer have any of my old toys, unfortunately. Russell, Warren, I really enjoyed this video. Both Jules and John are true gents. We are gents, you know. I have subscribed to John's channel as a result and look forward to any future collaborations.
I wish my wife would speak this nicely of me. I don't get these kind of compliments at home, so it's nice to hear.
What else we got here? Death Star 1973. Excellent vigils. Nice to see your excellent carded figure collection again. John really knows his stuff with the vintage values and grading, etc. Really enjoyable vid, mate. Thank you very much.
That's Gerard Coyle. Thank you, Gerard.
William Stevenson. Thanks for this video, Jules. I really enjoyed it. Your dad tells you to go do the banking and you go buy Star Wars figures on your way. Priceless. Always love looking at your collection with the many stories behind them. Makes one of the best vintage collections I know of. Keep up the great work. And that was from New Zealand. Oh, well, there's so many. I mean, absolutely so many here. I'm a Star Killer. So someone who was one of yours, or is one of your subscribers, who came over to me, says, I'm a subscriber of John's channel, the Action Figure Grader. So glad I found this video. Awesome stuff. Really enjoyable video. And really loved hearing how you got every figure. Some of those bargains, 40p. What dreams are made of. Last one, Joshua. Great collection. I love that signed Boba Fett. I met Jeremy a few years ago at a convention. I was more concerned with getting a picture with him. I wish I'd gotten a figure signed. There you go. See, this is it. You know, I feel these people aren't going to be around forever. So when the shows do start opening again, I want to be there. So you know, I will be checking them out. The last big sort of show I went to like that was a Star Trek convention, not a Star Wars one. So there wasn't much in the way of Star Wars stuff there, but I am keen to go to another toy fair again just to see what's out there. But looking at the prices, I mean, blimmin' heck, I don't think I'll be able to afford anything, you know.
I know, sticker shock.
Yeah, but those really nice comments, that really good.
Was comments. Thank you all for the nice comments.
Absolutely, yeah. And if anyone wants to leave some comments, we'll read out some more next video. So we've got one more thing to look at, haven't we, John?
Oh man, I get lightheaded just thinking about this item. I saw the photos for this and my jaw about hit the floor. I tell you what.
I had no idea, because this is the only 12-inch I own. I've had numerous loose ones through my hands, and there was a point in the shop where we had two Dennis Fisher Boba Fett's, two at the boxed ones at the same time.
Wow.
And a very common loose one, but yeah, so the 12-inch Clipper, get it in picture, Clipper LEIA, so another LEIA figure. Now, I was saying earlier, this was a pickup from a toy fair, early 90s again, and the dealer who had these had a case, a brand new case. He had three of these, 3 LEIAs and 3 Lukes. That was the assortment. So it's a box of 6 with 3 each, and from as I recall, I think they were £125 each, and this is the one that I ended up with. I didn't get the Luke, and the Lukes were around for a while. They didn't get snapped up, but yeah, a Clipper one again, brand new sealed, I thought, well, this is too good to turn down. I did notice, I put it in this GW acrylic, which is fantastic, but I needed to give it a bit of a dust off before I put it in there. So there's a little bit of like surface dust on the plastic, but it's a beauty. It's a beauty, an absolute cracker, and I do love it. But I never really thought it was mega money, to be honest, you know.
Well,
You're going to tell me a little.
I would say so. I mean, I remember. I didn't remember when I saw your original videos of you putting those beautiful items into the GW acrylic. For whatever reason, that mint and sealed box clipper LEIA escaped my mind. And when you sent it back to me for this video, for the making of this video, I mean, I was just shocked. I guess I just didn't remember it. But what an amazing item. And you know, maybe they are more numerous because I don't collect any of the clipper items only because of the cost. They're just so expensive. But I've only seen one other one just like that mint and sealed box that has sold on Facebook. I've never seen one on eBay. There's not been any on Hakes, on the Hakes auction site, and you know their data goes back quite a few years. I checked all of that for the pricing of this one, but I've only seen one other one like yours, and the gentleman underpriced it severely, and it's sold in seconds, and everyone knew it was underpriced. Another data point, just for reference, it's the U.S. version. It just sold. It just sold in the last Hakes lot. It was an AFA 90, so it's very, very mint. But it's the U.S. version. The clipper is much more rare. That AFA 90 sold for $5,400, and so that's just the standard U.S. version. And I put your grade. I mean, I looked at those photos very closely. I think easily it's an 80 or an 80 plus grade item. It's just in immaculate shape, and it's like a time capsule. But this was very extremely. It was very tough to price this one. I did quite a bit of research on it, and you know, as I said, I only remember that one that sold on Facebook that was severely underpriced. But I think comfortably, even without grading, just in the current shape it's in, this is probably a low number. I would say 1,200 to 1,400 pounds and $1,600 to $2,000 US, and that's probably way low, just given that data point I just shared with you about the Hakes sale. It's an incredible item, and it's just really great to see such a pristine example of a foreign vintage 12-inch figure like that. It's just, I really loved seeing it.
It is cracking, and I think that's probably what put me off getting any more, was because they just don't turn up in that condition.
No.
And I couldn't find them in that condition. I've got I think I've got an Italian Harbert remote control R2D2. That's the only other one that I've got, and that's signed by Kenny Baker. That was you know, get your head around that if you can. But
oh wow.
I got no idea where that actually is, but it's around somewhere. But that's the only other 12-inch I've got. The only one I'd really like would be the talking Palatoy R2D2, and for quite a long time, because I had one as a kid and I don't know what happened to it. I almost got it, and I remember just missing out at an early 90s toy fair where someone had one for like £25. It tends to go for 250 to 300, I think. Last time I was looking, that was a couple of years ago. But yeah, that's the only 12-inch I've got. So yeah, consequently, I'd love to get them all. Remember when I bought that loose set for 300? The guy, the £300 carded lot. The same guy had written his car off, had a loose set, all with their guns, for another £300. And I ummed and ahed, but I just couldn't afford it, you know. At the time, you know, I shot my bolt, as it were, and I couldn't afford any more that day. But hey,
I know that feeling all too well, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's an expensive hobby, but it's a lot of fun, isn't it? And that's fantastic. I remember sort of late 90s, there was a Star Wars forum, pre-Facebook. There was a Star Wars forum, and there was this amazing thread on focus collectors, which I find absolutely fascinating. I just love people who focus.
Me too. It's so great to see those photos.
Yeah, I just love it, and I just feel the time is too far gone now to focus collect. I remember there were lots of figures I thought about doing, and I remember one guy bringing a load of loose figures into the shop to buy, because remember I said we used to get people bring in, and he'd he created a chess set from original action figures. So he had 8 Yodas and 8 Jawas as the pawns.
Oh wow.
8 Yodas, just incredible. Back to the Princess Leia. So on the focus, this focus thread, there was a guy, and he collected all the variations of that 12-inch Princess Leia, and there was about 8 of them, and I couldn't believe it. And he had the clipper. I think he had a Japanese one that I just couldn't believe, and there was the Dennis Fisher one. I mean, I'm sure there was at least 7 or 8 different versions. I thought, this is just beyond it, you know, and it sort of put my odd one paled into comparison a little bit, really. But yeah, maybe that's something we can talk about in the future. But I love focus collectors. There's
nothing pale about that Princess Leia other than her face, because that is an amazing item, an incredible item.
Yeah, it is really good. It's the only doll in this house, you know. I think.
I call all of mine plastic dolls. I'm a plastic doll collector. I'm not an action figure collector.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, I am really pleased with that. That's an eclectic mix of stuff, and quite a mixture. I hope you didn't mind.
It was a great mix.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Because, you know, with Star Wars, it is literally anything Star Wars. It's not, you know, I've got loads of printed and paper stuff. I mean, just boxes and boxes of it. And I said, like the comics, and I've got real oddball British stuff, you know, bathroom stuff and bubble baths, and lampshades and curtains and bedding.
I've seen it. I remember the curtain.
Just ridiculous, you know. And
sleeping bags. I had a sleeping bag.
Yeah, I haven't got one of those. There's still stuff I never got around to showing on my unboxing videos. I've got like a Return of the Jedi playmat. It's massive. It's a real huge thing, but like rubber backed. There's still stuff that never really got shown, but you know, we'll get around to it eventually. But yeah, this was a lot of fun again, John. I really enjoyed it.
I had so much fun. I love doing these.
Yeah, absolutely
I
brilliant.
appreciate you having me on.
Oh no, my pleasure, mate. My absolute pleasure. Well, I guess we better wrap it since it's an hour and 20. But I'll get this.
We could do this all day, Jules.
We could indeed. So I'll say my official goodbyes. Thank you very, very much for coming on, John. And let's do this again as soon as we can. Maybe in another month or so.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, guys. Bye.